and the Stormers have crushed the Lions' hopes for a playoff. Unfortunately for the Lions, they are no longer in the race for the URC title. Congratulations to the Stormers for a very hard-fought win. It was a tough game for both sides, lots of drama, lots of stuff to get into, so I hope you'll stick around. Let's start with the territory. It was basically 50-50, very even all throughout, but perhaps the Stormers had the slight advantage in terms of the actual territorial makeup of the game. 34% of the game was played within the Lions' 22, but only 24% was played within the Stormers' 22. Now, I don't think this indicates that the Lions were necessarily under way more pressure throughout the game. I think that might be true in some cases, but for the majority of the game, the Lions were actually on the front foot. And the possession stats back up this claim. The Lions had 32% of their possession in the Stormers' 22. That is quite a high number, compared to the Stormers who only had 21% of their possession within the Lions' 22. The Stormers also had 14% of their possession within their 22. And if we couple this with the fact that the Stormers had to make 138 tackles compared to the Lions who only had to make 77 tackles, I think it's fair to say that the Stormers were under pressure a bit more throughout the game. They struggled to get the ball back, and when they got the ball back, they couldn't necessarily make a lot of gain line meters. When we look at the Stormers' post-contact meters, they only had 126 post-contact meters from 62 carries. Now, while that is fairly average in terms of meters per carry, they still only had 62 ball carries throughout the entire match. That's a very low amount. Now, from this, it might seem like the Stormers had a very solid defensive game, but they actually didn't. They missed 35 tackles, and they only had a tackle completion percentage of 80%. So putting this together from an overview perspective, we can say that the Lions had a lot of attacking opportunities. It's just that they didn't make these opportunities count. That combined with some very, very stupid discipline issues for the Lions really cost them the game, and it put them on the back foot all throughout. For the Stormers, while they did not have the best performance and they didn't play to the best of their abilities, they were clinical. They made tackles when it mattered most, and they scored tries when it mattered most, even though they did not have a plethora of opportunities. So let's start with the game. The Lions started off really strongly, and they managed to disrupt the Stormers in the air on the restart. This then eventually led to the first penalty of the game, which went to the Lions, and they took the 3-0 lead. On the restarts, the Lions opted to compete for the ball in the air, instead of waiting for the Stormers to come down and then to try to counter-ruck. This was quite successful, and I thought that they managed to really put the Stormers under pressure. It felt like the Stormers' restarts weren't as solid as we are used to seeing. Now, after the penalty, the Stormers managed to take back momentum of the game, and there was quite a big defensive shift that the Lions had to put in from the restart then on. And it eventually culminated in the Stormers' first maul try. So while the Stormers did start off with a well-worked maul try, in general, their lineouts really struggled during this game. They only had a 78% lineout win success rate, whereas the Lions had a 91% success rate. However, as much as the Stormers struggled in the lineout, they were extremely dominant in the scrum. I don't think I've ever seen the Lions scrum be dominated as much as it was in that game. They gave away so many penalties. And really, I mean, this Lions scrum has been a focal point for them. It's been pretty good this year. So that was really impressive. It mainly came from Fushia, I think, who was the tight head for the Stormers. And he absolutely ate his opposite tight head alive at the scrum. So that was a really impressive performance by the Stormers forward pack. That's one area where they can be really proud of themselves. Another big problem for the Lions was their discipline issues. I think what's really frustrating, and I'd love to hear your opinion as a Lions fan, was just how soft some of these penalties and some of these issues were. You know, the elephant in the room was Marius Lowe. When Angelo Davids tackled Nohamba and he got the red card. Marius Lowe came in and he pushed him. Now, credit to Davids for really selling that, but still, that is absolutely... I don't know what Marius Lowe was thinking there. It was very frustrating. Another example was towards the end of the game, when the Lions put up a high ball, a bomb, for their chasers to chase, and I believe it might have been Vandenberg. Sorry if I'm calling you out and it wasn't you, but one of the Lions players, he was about 50 meters in front of the kick, and then he just started chasing. And to me, that was just like, how can you do that? How can you have such a high lapse in concentration to make such a very basic error? A lot of these penalties and a lot of these issues came at very crucial times for the Lions. I felt that these happened in periods where the Lions had the upper hand. They were starting to dominate the match. The Stormers, on the other hand, credit to them, they kept cool heads even after a player was sent off. So that was very good for them, and it showed a lot of maturity. And then finally, I want to talk about this guy, SFM. He had an absolutely wonderful game. He was amazing defensively. His work rate was incredible. And as Springbok fans, we can count ourselves lucky that we have this caliber of talent coming through. Another standout that I mentioned before, Fushia, absolute beast in the scrum. He made a massive difference in the game for them at scrum time. You could argue, if he wasn't there, if he didn't put in the performance at scrum time as he did, the Lions might have just completely taken this game. So awesome game from those two. That's all from my side. Thank you for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the game. What do you think both teams can take from this? How do you think the Stormers are going to do in the playoffs? Very important questions. Cheers, guys.